Do you believe you are a good person, calm, kind, incapable of harming anyone, perhaps even proud of your empathy, your patience, how much you avoid conflict? But what if I told you that all of this image of kindness, this facade of self-control, might just be an illusion, and worse, a dangerous illusion? There is a part of you that you avoid looking at, a dark, instinctive, brutal side. It's inside you, even if you pretend it's not. Carl Jung called this the shadow, and it's not just a metaphor. It is real, and the more you ignore it, the more control it has over you. It's the unacknowledged architect of your hidden anxieties and unexpected outbursts. Have you ever found yourself exploding over something small, saying something cruel that doesn't align with who you think you are? Have you ever judged someone with disdain even without knowing why? That knee-jerk reaction you can't quite explain? Have you ever sabotaged your own opportunities, pushed away people who loved you, made decisions that you later couldn't even explain, leaving you bewildered and ashamed? Then listen closely. Maybe it wasn't entirely you. It was that suppressed aspect of yourself, the one you pretend doesn't exist, the part you've shoved into the dark corners of your mind, the one you hide even from yourself. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that is the insidious trap. You think you are the author of your story, but the truth is, you are being guided by forces you don't even understand. Your shadow, repressed and neglected, is subtly influencing your decisions, like a puppeteer pulling strings you can't see. And when that happens, the outcome can be devastating, not just for you, but for those around you. This exploration is not an abstract theory. It is not a sterile philosophical debate. It is a call to action, a stark reflection in a broken mirror, a direct conversation with you, who has felt that unsettling sensation of something inside you escaping your control, who has felt suffocated by thoughts you dare not confess even to yourself, who keeps wondering why you repeat the same mistakes, the same painful reactions, the same destructive patterns. Today, we will dare to expose this shadow. We will look at it with courage, not with judgment. We will understand how it is born, why it grows, and what happens when you ignore it, allowing it to fester and grow stronger. And more importantly, how to face it, not to vanquish it, but to integrate it before it's too late. Because listen closely, if you don't confront your shadow, it will find a way to undermine you, and you won't even realize it was the source. You will blame the world, people, fate, luck, but the truth is, the enemy, or rather the unacknowledged self, has always been within. Are you ready to look into the eyes of your darkest self? Not with fear, but with a curious and compassionate gaze. To understand what the shadow is and why it has so much power over you, we need to go back to the beginning, not of your adult life, not of your adolescence, not even to that specific traumatic event you keep replaying in your mind. We need to go back to childhood, because it is there, in the formative early years, that your shadow begins to be born, slowly but surely taking shape. Imagine the following. You are a child, full of vibrant energy, unfiltered emotions, and natural impulses. You cry when you are frustrated. You scream when you are angry. You laugh with unrestrained joy. You are spontaneous, wild, authentic, unburdened by societal expectations. But gradually, insidiously, the adults around you, parents, teachers, caregivers, start to prune this natural behavior, often with the best of intentions but with devastating consequences. Boys don't cry. Good girls don't scream. Don't speak so loudly. Swallow your tears. That's ugly. Behave yourself. And inevitably, you learn. You learn that certain feelings are unacceptable, that expressing them leads to disapproval, even punishment. You learn that showing anger is wrong, that wanting something with great intensity is selfishness, that thinking differently is being a problem. So what do? This vulnerable child seeking love and acceptance. You start to hide those parts of yourself, compartmentalizing your emotions. You bury your anger deep down. You pretend you're not envious when a sibling receives more attention. You repress desire, yearning for approval more than authenticity. You disguise pain with polite smiles, becoming a master of emotional camouflage. And so, piece by piece, you painstakingly construct a persona, a socially acceptable character, the image of the good boy, the good daughter, the exemplary employee, the loving partner. It's the mask you wear to navigate the world, seeking validation and avoiding rejection. But while you carefully shape this image, something else is being built in silence, deep within your mind. Something you don't want to see, something you don't want to admit exists, something that challenges your carefully crafted self-image, the shadow. For Carl Jung, the shadow is composed of everything you have rejected in yourself, not just your perceived flaws, but also your potential strengths that have been suffocated. Your legitimate anger at injustice, your burning creative ambition, your healthy sexuality, your unwavering courage, your assertive aggression, your raw authenticity. Everything that didn't fit the narrow mold you were forced to wear. All of this was unceremoniously thrown into the psychological basement of your psyche, and it stayed there, banished but not gone, waiting for its moment. But here's the crucial point, the one that will change everything. The shadow doesn't disappear simply because you ignore it, actively denying its existence. Quite the opposite. The more you repress, the stronger it becomes, festering in the darkness and gaining power over your subconscious. And worse, it starts to manifest behind the curtains of your conscious awareness, in your uncontrollable impulses, in your exaggerated reactions, in your harsh judgments of others, in your troubled relationships, in that insidious inner voice that constantly sabotages your efforts, whispering doubts and anxieties. The shadow is like a hungry beast locked away in a cage, and you naively think it's under control, until the rusty door can't hold anymore and it breaks free. Jung understood something profound that few have the courage to accept. We are not just what we show the world, the carefully curated image we present to others. We are, above all, what we hide from ourselves, the secrets we bury deep within our own minds. The shadow is not just a repository of bad things, negative traits, and destructive impulses. It is, paradoxically, the most human, real, instinctive part of who you are, a source of untapped energy and potential. Denying it is denying a fundamental aspect of yourself, severing you from your wholeness. And that's precisely why it always finds a way to come back, often in unexpected and destructive ways. And when it returns, when it finally finds a crack in your carefully constructed defenses, you don't recognize what you see reflected in the mirror. That's when the behaviors you later call mistakes emerge, the words you say and instantly regret, the actions you swear you'll never repeat, but somehow, inexplicably, you do. Because it's not truly you who is in control. It's the shadow that is subtly guiding your steps, and you keep calling it destiny, blaming external forces for your internal struggles. But what if this shadow wasn't just a silent threat, a source of inner turmoil? What if it could transform into something much worse, a force capable of inflicting genuine harm on yourself and others, if it had the space, the context, and the subtle encouragement to do so? Next, we will explore how the shadow can insidiously transform into pure cruelty, and how this understanding explains why seemingly good, ordinary people can commit monstrous acts, demonstrating the terrifying potential that lies dormant within us all. If this content is resonating with you, if it's sparking a sense of self-recognition and a desire for deeper understanding, click the subscribe button and join our community. Your support fuels our mission to explore the complexities of the human psyche and provide tools for personal growth. Thank you for your valuable support. Do you believe that there are people who are naturally evil, inherently bad from birth, that some human beings are born inclined to evil, while others are essentially good and pure? This idea is seductive in its simplicity, and it offers a false sense of security. It creates a comforting separation between you and the monster, between the law-abiding citizen and the cold-blooded criminal, between you and the one who crosses all moral lines, violating the very fabric of our shared humanity. But this separation is a dangerous illusion, and those who had the courage to shatter it, to confront the uncomfortable truth about human nature, were pioneers like psychologist Philip Zimbardo, with one of the most controversial and ethically debated experiments in the history of modern psychology, the Stanford Prison Experiment. In 1971, Zimbardo meticulously selected ordinary college students with no criminal backgrounds, individuals who were deemed psychologically healthy and well-adjusted. They were randomly divided into two groups, guards and prisoners. The ostensibly simple idea was to simulate a prison environment, to observe the psychological dynamics of power and confinement. But what happened inside that unassuming basement at Stanford University in just 6 short days was profoundly disturbing and terrifying, forcing us to confront the darkest aspects of human behavior. The guards, kind, intelligent, educated young men who were no different from anyone else, began to psychologically abuse the prisoners with escalating cruelty. They shouted insults, subjected them to public humiliation, deprived them of sleep, and imposed increasingly arbitrary and dehumanizing physical and moral punishments. The prisoners, in turn, began to emotionally collapse under the weight of the abuse. They cried, experienced profound anxiety, and desperately begged to be released, their sense of self eroding with each passing day. The experiment, which was initially intended to last 2 weeks, had to be abruptly interrupted in less than 1, as the situation spiraled dangerously out of control. What Zimbardo chillingly demonstrated was this: evil is not a fixed personality trait, an inherent characteristic possessed only by a select few. Evil is a latent possibility that resides within all of us, a potential that can be unleashed under specific circumstances. And when the right conditions are established, absolute and unchecked power, a sense of anonymity and de-individuation, the absence of clear accountability and consequences, the shadow finds the space, the opportunity to manifest without masks, revealing its true and terrifying form. Those young men did not suddenly become cruel because they were inherently evil people. They became cruel because their shadow was finally allowed to emerge from the depths of their subconscious, empowered by the situation to express itself without restraint. The carefully constructed persona, the facade of civility, crumbled under the weight of the simulated power, and what remained was the repressed part of themselves, wild, brutal, dehumanizing, capable of inflicting immense suffering on others. This is what Zimbardo chillingly termed the Lucifer effect, the transformation of the angel into a demon, the descent into darkness that lies within us all. And this transformation does not happen dramatically, in one sudden and decisive act. It starts with small permissions, with seemingly insignificant choices, a malicious comment disguised as a joke, a subtle act of humiliation justified by rationalizations, an abuse of power excused as just doing my job. When you are unaware of your shadow, when you fail to recognize its influence, it subtly finds ways to manifest in your life, and these seemingly small ways can lead you down a path to places you never imagined, behaviors you never thought yourself capable of. Carl Jung and Philip Zimbardo never collaborated directly, but their groundbreaking ideas intersect with a chilling precision, offering profound insights into the complexities of human nature. Jung spoke of the dangers of repression, of how suppressing our shadow creates internal monsters that can sabotage our lives. Zimbardo showed in a stark and unforgettable way what happens when the environment allows those monsters to break free from their cage, unleashing chaos and destruction. Together, they reveal a complete and unsettling portrait of human evil. It is not something that exists solely out there, confined to the actions of criminals and psychopaths. It is something that resides within, a potential that lies dormant in each and every one of us, and it just needs a crack in our defenses, a moment of weakness to dominate. But perhaps you are now wondering, okay, I intellectually understand the concept of the shadow, but how can I practically know if my shadow is already acting in my life, influencing my decisions, shaping my behavior? How can I perceive the subtle signs before it's too late, before I cause harm to myself or others? In the next part, we will clearly identify the most common symptoms of being dominated by your shadow without even realizing it. Subtle indicators that your unconscious is pulling the strings, and perhaps you will recognize yourself in these examples more than you would comfortably like. You don't need to commit shocking atrocities or engage in overt acts of malice to be subtly dominated by your shadow. It rarely reveals itself in an obvious, theatrical way. The shadow doesn't typically shout its intentions from the rooftops. It whispers insidious suggestions, working behind the scenes to undermine your best efforts. And that's exactly why it is so incredibly dangerous, because it acts in silence, operating in the subtext of your thoughts and feelings, hidden beneath layers of justifications and rationalizations. It cleverly camouflages itself in behaviors you readily accept as simply my way of doing things, my personality quirks, my natural temperament. But the truth is, if you observe your own reactions with unflinching honesty and a critical eye, you'll begin to see that it's not always you who is truly in control. It's the shadow subtly influencing your choices. Want a simple and relatable example? That disproportionate and intense irritation you feel towards someone who holds opinions diametrically opposed to your own? That automatic disdain you experience when encountering someone who is more confident, bolder, or seemingly freer than you are. The cruel and judgmental inner monologue you unleash in your mind, when you witness someone standing out from the crowd, or, conversely, experiencing a public failure. These powerful feelings don't spontaneously arise from nowhere. They are reflections, projections, as Jung eloquently explained. What irritates us in others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. In other words, what bothers you most intensely in others is almost always something you have repressed in yourself, a quality or trait that you secretly envy or deeply fear within yourself. Another clear and telling symptom of shadow influence is self-sabotage. Have you ever found yourself tantalizingly close to achieving something truly great? A fulfilling romantic relationship, a meaningful career project, a significant positive change in your life, and then, seemingly without conscious intent, inexplicably destroyed everything, delayed what you shouldn't have, said exactly the wrong thing at the worst possible moment, or created an entirely unnecessary conflict out of thin air. The shadow often acts in this insidious way. It doesn't inherently want you to be happy or successful, or to experience lasting fulfillment, because growing and evolving require internal confrontation, a willingness to challenge your deeply held beliefs and step outside your comfort zone. It subtly prefers to keep you safely trapped in what is familiar, even if that familiarity is ultimately destructive and limiting. It thrives on your stagnation, feeding on your insecurities, and preventing you from reaching your full potential. And what about uncontrollable emotions? Have you ever felt a surge of hatred that seems completely out of proportion to the situation? A wave of jealousy that feels irrational and all-consuming? A pang of envy that you desperately try to disguise with layers of thinly veiled criticism? These extreme and often overwhelming emotional states are often direct manifestations of the shadow, raw and unfiltered expressions of repressed content. They are parts of yourself that have been consistently denied, relentlessly repressed, and now scream for attention, demanding to be acknowledged, just in the worst possible way. Taking the wheel of your life without your conscious awareness or consent. The shadow can also subtly reveal itself in the elaborate masks you wear when you try too hard to appear good, morally correct, excessively spiritualized, or perpetually peaceful. Be extremely cautious of those who relentlessly project an image of unwavering perfection, because excessive virtue may just be an unconscious defense mechanism, a desperate attempt to overcompensate for the powerful and unsettling impulses they fear most within themselves. That person who constantly prides themselves on their boundless patience may be secretly harboring immense and unacknowledged anger. Those who vociferously claim to be completely detached from material possessions may just be desperately fleeing from their own deep-seated neediness and insecurity. The shadow is not simply comprised of what is traditionally considered ugly or negative. It is, more fundamentally, what is true but has not been consciously accepted, integrated, and understood. And here's a hard truth, one that many find difficult to swallow. The more rigidly you define yourself solely by the light, by the idealized version of yourself you present to the world, the more you will inevitably be controlled by the darkness, by the shadow, because everything you do not consciously integrate and acknowledge will possess you, subtly dictating your choices and shaping your reality. But now that you are beginning to identify these subtle but significant signs, now that you are becoming more attuned to the whispers of your own shadow, the most troubling and potentially transformative question arises. What if this meticulously constructed image of a good person that you have so diligently maintained is actually just an elaborate defense mechanism, a sophisticated way to keep your shadow securely locked away, preventing you from confronting the uncomfortable truths about your own nature? From this moment forward, let's dare to shatter the greatest illusion of all, the deeply ingrained belief that you are essentially and inherently good. And let's expose the truth that no one wants to hear, the reality that challenges our carefully constructed self-image. You are not as inherently good as you think you are, and everything you fear most about humanity, everything that you judge most harshly in others, still lives in some form within you. Do you consider yourself a good person? Perhaps you truly believe that you are, and maybe, on the surface, your actions seem to support that belief. After all, you don't intentionally hurt anyone. You strive to be kind and compassionate. You genuinely want to do the right thing, to contribute positively to the world. But what if I told you that this carefully cultivated kindness is, in part, a construct, a social veneer, an intricate suit of armor you created to avoid facing the more brutal, uncomfortable, and potentially destructive parts of yourself? Society, from a young age, taught you that being good means not feeling anger, not wanting too much, not being selfish, not expressing vulnerability. But feelings, as you are beginning to understand, don't simply disappear because you consciously deny their existence. They are not easily banished into the void. They simply go to the psychological basement of your consciousness, and there, deprived of light and understanding, they transform into something darker, more corrosive, more dangerous, festering in the shadows and growing stronger with each act of repression. You haven't truly stopped feeling envy. You've just learned to cleverly disguise it, to rationalize it as critical opinion or healthy competition. You haven't stopped wanting power and influence. You've just learned to cleverly disguise it as the noble desire to make a difference, or the altruistic need to help others. Your carefully cultivated kindness may just be the domesticated, socially acceptable version of your untamed shadow, a way to control and suppress the more unruly aspects of your nature. Carl Jung famously said that enlightenment does not happen by imagining figures of light, by focusing exclusively on the positive and idealized aspects of ourselves. It happens by making the inner darkness conscious, by shining the light of awareness on the hidden corners of our psyche. And this is where so many stumble and ultimately fail, because they instinctively recoil from the idea of seeing their own darkness, from confronting the unsettling truths about their own capacity for both good and evil. They desperately want to maintain the comforting illusion that they are pure, just, morally superior, somehow immune to the darker impulses that plague the rest of humanity. But this prideful self-deception is, in itself, an expression of the shadow, because it subtly hides something fundamental. The deep-seated fear of not being good enough, the terror of discovering that within you exists the potential for cruelty, selfishness, arrogance, and contempt. You think you are exceptionally kind and compassionate, but maybe you are just passively aggressive, subtly undermining those around you while outwardly professing goodwill. You think you are admirably humble, but you secretly seethe with resentment when someone else receives more recognition or praise than you do. You sincerely say you don't care about status or material possessions, but you feel diminished and inadequate, when you see someone who is more successful or wealthier than you. This doesn't make you a monster. It makes you human, a complex and contradictory being capable of both great acts of love and unspeakable acts of cruelty. And that's exactly the crucial point. The more you deny your inherent humanity, the more the shadow takes control, subtly influencing your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. True and lasting kindness doesn't come from relentlessly denying the existence of the evil within you. It comes from facing it head-on, recognizing it as an integral part of yourself, and consciously deciding not to act from it, to choose compassion and empathy over judgment and resentment. This is psychic maturity, the ability to hold both light and darkness within yourself without being consumed by either. This is integration, the process of becoming whole. The rest? It's just fantasy, emotional childishness, a refusal to grapple with the complexities of being human. And childishness, when repressed for too long, inevitably turns into destruction, either directed internally, leading to self-sabotage and mental anguish, or directed externally, causing harm to those around you. Do you really want to know who you truly are in all your messy and imperfect glory? Then look at what embarrasses you, at what you instinctively judge in others, at the thoughts and feelings you desperately try to silence because it is there, exactly there, in the uncomfortable and unsettling depths of your own shadow, that the most real and authentic part of you lies waiting to be discovered. But what now? If the shadow is inevitable, a constant companion throughout our lives, and is already subtly acting in our lives, influencing our choices and shaping our reality, what can we realistically do about it? How can we prevent it from continuing to sabotage our relationships, our careers, our overall well-being, and our future? You will soon discover that the shadow doesn't necessarily have to be your enemy, a destructive force that undermines everything you strive for, because there is a path forward, a deep, challenging, and ultimately liberating process called shadow work. If what you're hearing resonates deeply with you, if you feel a sense of recognition and a desire for genuine self-understanding, you'll find real and lasting value in my comprehensive ebook, Beyond the Shadow, a practical guide to integrating your dark side. So, it breaks down Jung's complex and often intimidating core ideas into manageable steps and gives you practical tools, exercises, and techniques to understand yourself more deeply, to identify your shadow patterns, and to integrate those disowned aspects of yourself into your conscious awareness. The link is conveniently located in the pinned comment below. By now, you have hopefully come to the profound realization that ignoring your shadow, pretending it doesn't exist, is essentially a sentence of slow and insidious self-destruction. But here's what almost no one explicitly says. Your shadow, despite its seemingly destructive tendencies, does not actually want to destroy you. It wants to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, to be integrated into your conscious awareness. And it is precisely by ignoring it, by pretending it doesn't exist, by suppressing its expression, that it ultimately ends up possessing you, subtly dictating your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors from the shadows of your unconscious mind. Carl Jung called this transformative process integration, and it is neither simple nor comfortable. It requires immense courage, unwavering honesty, and a deep commitment to self-discovery. It requires you to dive into the darkest corners of your own psyche, to confront the aspects of yourself that you fear and despise the most, and to accept those disowned parts not as weaknesses or flaws, but as integral components of your whole self. This doesn't mean surrendering to your negative impulses or acting out your shadow desires. It means transforming that repressed content into sources of strength, awareness, and freedom. This process has a name: shadow work, and it begins with a brutally honest and deceptively simple question. What in myself do I desperately not want to admit exists? It is at this pivotal point that you need to stop lying to yourself, to drop the carefully constructed facade, and to confront the uncomfortable truths about your own nature. You need to acknowledge your darkest impulses, your most shameful secrets, without judgment, without moralizing, without self-pity. Do you feel envy towards someone else's success? Acknowledge it, without immediately condemning yourself. Do you take a secret pleasure in seeing someone who has humiliated you fail? Accept that you feel that way, without trying to rationalize it away. Have you ever wished to hurt someone, either with words or with actions, even if only in your thoughts? Admit it to yourself without shame or guilt, because what you do not admit and acknowledge will continue to dominate you from the shadows. But what you bravely face and understand, you have the power to transform. One of the most powerful and effective tools for engaging in shadow work is the shadow journal. Grab a piece of paper and a pen, or open a blank file on your computer or tablet, and commit to writing without filters, without censorship, without worrying about what anyone else might think. Give voice to the thoughts, feelings, and fantasies that you would never dare to say out loud, even to your closest confidants. Let out everything you hide, even from yourself, allowing your uncensored thoughts to flow freely onto the page. Yes, it will undoubtedly be uncomfortable. Yes, you will likely be scared by what you find lurking within the depths of your own mind. But it is precisely this discomfort that liberates you, that breaks the chains of repression, because the shadow doesn't want to be buried alive. It desperately wants to be recognized, acknowledged, and understood. Another essential practice for shadow work is to diligently observe your emotional triggers. Who irritates you the most? Who do you judge most harshly? What situations throw you completely off balance, triggering disproportionate reactions? These strong reactions are invaluable clues, revealing the parts of yourself that have not yet been integrated, the shadow aspects that are demanding your attention. What you consistently project onto others is, in fact, an unconscious attempt to expel something that already exists within you, a disowned quality or trait that you are unwilling to acknowledge as part of yourself. The shadow reveals itself more clearly in what you vehemently condemn in others than in what you readily confess about yourself. And finally, learn to dialogue with your shadow, to engage in an open and honest conversation with the disowned parts of yourself. Do not wage war against it. Do not try to eliminate it or banish it from your psyche. Instead, try to understand its motivations, its fears, its unmet needs. Tell it, "I see you, I hear you, I acknowledge your presence. You are a part of me, an integral aspect of my being, but you do not have to control my life. I am in charge." This simple attitude of embracing without submitting, of accepting without condoning, changes everything, because it transforms fear into awareness, anger into power, insecurity into clarity. Shadow work is not a cheap self-help technique promising instant transformation. It is a profound and ongoing existential journey, a lifelong commitment to self-discovery and personal growth. It is traversing the fiery landscape of your own truth, facing the discomfort and the pain, and emerging on the other side whole, more authentic, more free, and more complete than you ever thought possible. Because true and lasting strength does not come from denying who you are, from suppressing the darker aspects of your nature. It comes from mastering what is within you, from understanding and integrating all parts of yourself, especially those that scare you the most. But even with all this knowledge, even with a clear understanding of the principles and practices of shadow work, there is one nagging question that still echoes in the back of your mind. Is it truly worth it? This painful and challenging process of facing the shadow, of diving into the abyss of your own unconscious, of exposing the deepest wounds and vulnerabilities that you have spent a lifetime trying to hide. All of this ultimately leads to a breaking point, a moment of truth, a critical juncture when you realize that you either face the discomfort and pain of transformation, choosing to actively engage in shadow work and embrace your whole self, or continue to be a slave to the pain of repetition, unconsciously reenacting the same destructive patterns and behaviors throughout your life. In the next and final part, we will delve into that pivotal breaking point, exploring the profound choice that lies before you. And there, you will finally understand why the only real way out of the cycle of suffering is to embrace exactly what you have been avoiding your whole life. The truth about who you really are, shadow and all. You have spent your entire life trying to be someone that others would approve of, someone who would be deemed worthy of love and acceptance. You carefully wore the mask of the good person, the strong person, the balanced person, meticulously crafting an image that would shield you from criticism and rejection. You desperately tried to fit into what was expected of you, to hide what was considered shameful or unacceptable, to bury what was deemed ugly or undesirable within yourself. But the more you tried to escape your shadow, the stronger it became, insidiously weaving its way into your actions, your fears, your silent decisions, shaping your life in ways you didn't even realize. And now, perhaps, you're beginning to realize that everything you previously attributed to bad luck, to sabotage by others, to the cruel hand of fate, was just you, driven by the unconscious forces of those disowned parts of yourself that you have steadfastly refused to see. Do you truly want to be free from this cycle of suffering, to break free from the patterns that have been holding you back? Then look directly at what you avoid most within yourself, because that is where the portal to freedom lies, the key to unlocking your authentic potential. The shadow is not the end of the road. It is the crossing, the necessary passage through the darkness that leads to the light. It is the fertile ground where true freedom is born, not the superficial freedom of doing whatever you want without regard for consequences, but the profound inner freedom of not being a slave to unconscious impulses, automatic patterns of behavior, and destructive repetitions that you don't even understand the origin of. When you consciously integrate your shadow, something fundamentally changes within you, permanently altering the course of your life. You stop sabotaging your own efforts. You stop blaming the world for your problems. And you stop living in constant fear of yourself, because now you know there is nothing left to hide. You see yourself in full, in all your messy and contradictory glory, light and darkness, strength and fragility, joy and sorrow. And when you see yourself in full, with compassion and acceptance, no one can truly control you anymore. Not your past, not your pain, not your traumas, not the masks you have worn for so long. But be warned, this is not a destination to be reached, a problem to be solved, and then forgotten. It is an ongoing process, a continuous practice. The shadow is alive, dynamic, and ever-evolving, and it will inevitably return, testing your resolve, trying to catch you off guard when you are most vulnerable. That's why the path of awareness never truly ends. You need to remain vigilant, consistently observe your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and actively take care of your psyche as one would carefully tend to a sacred temple. Because if you let your guard down, if you become complacent and neglectful, the shadow will once again subtly take control of your life, and you will once again find yourself blaming external forces for what is ultimately a result of your own internal struggles. So, I invite you to make a pact with yourself now, a pact of honesty, a pact of courage, and a pact of responsibility. Don't run away from who you truly are anymore. Don't try to hide from the darker aspects of your nature. Start today, in this very moment. Write in your shadow journal. Diligently observe your emotional triggers. Engage in honest self-reflection, and most importantly, share your insights and experiences in the comments below. Tell me, which part of your shadow do you have the hardest time accepting? What emotion, desire, or impulse do you often pretend you don't feel, even though you know deep down that it is there? Let's talk about it. Let's create a safe and supportive space for honest self-exploration, because the more we talk about our shadows, the more light enters, and the more light there is, the less control darkness has over us. If this exploration has deeply impacted you, if it has made you rethink your relationship with yourself in a profound way, I encourage you to continue on this journey of self-discovery. Watch the next video. It is important, and it may be exactly what you need to hear right now to take the next step on your path to wholeness. The darkness is not the end. It is the beginning of true awareness, the gateway to a more authentic and fulfilling life. See you there. So, what have we learned? The journey into the shadow is ultimately a journey to yourself. It's about acknowledging the full spectrum of your being, the light and the darkness, and integrating all those parts into a more complete and authentic whole. It's about understanding that you're not inherently good or bad, but rather a complex human being capable of both. And that true strength lies not in denying the darkness, but in consciously choosing the light. This journey towards conscious living isn't easy, but it's profoundly worthwhile. It's the key to unlocking genuine self-acceptance, to building more meaningful relationships, and to living a life free from the unconscious constraints of your shadow. It's about gaining that cognitive clarity so you can face life head-on. It can also contribute to digital wellness, helping you to manage your emotions in the digital world. We hope these mental health tools have provided some food for thought. This exploration is just the beginning. We'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, and experiences with shadow work. Leave a comment below, share your reflections, or ask anything that's on your mind. Let's build a community where we can all support each other on this path of self-discovery and trauma recovery science. We're creating the neuroscience content and mental health resources to help you discover your best self. And if you found this video helpful and you're interested in more content on self-optimization and emotional intelligence, be sure to subscribe. We'll be diving deeper into these topics, sharing more practical advice and insights to help you live a more conscious and fulfilling life. We appreciate you being here.